I'd like to call the meeting to order. This business meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Zoom in compliance with our RSU 38 policy BED, remote participation in school board meetings. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the marinacook.org YouTube channel. Please be aware that during the course of this meeting, the microphones on the viewing audience will be muted except during the identified portions of public comments at this meeting. For today's agenda, that's number 4. This is also a budget meeting, and public comment on budget items may be given at number 9D. If you are attending by Zoom and you would like to speak during the public comment times, we're asking that you use the chat feature to sign up. So what I'm asking you to do is right now to, in the chat box, put your first name, last name, and the town that you're from. And Mrs. McGregor will collect those off the chat and she will bring them to me, and then we'll go down through them the same way we do with the sign-up sheet on the table. In-person speakers, there is a clipboard on the table down there. If you would like to speak, please sign up and I'll go down through the clipboard when it's time. All individuals that wish to speak, whether in person or virtual, please identify yourself with your first and last name and the town you live in. Please note that individuals that do not live in our member communities may or may not be granted permission to speak at the discretion of the board chair. We also ask that speakers limit their individual comments to 2 minutes. And if someone speaks ahead of you that has a similar view, please reference their comment. We thank you in advance for your constructive comments. If you would please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we're going to start tonight with our student, roll call. I'm just anxious to hear from the students. Sorry.
So attendance and all votes will be done through a roll call vote. So board members, when your name is called, please cast your vote with the 3 available options of yes, approve, no, disapprove, or abstain. We are going to do a roll call vote very quickly, so those in-person people can also hear the ones that are at home. So bear with us for just a minute, and then we'll get to the student reports. Kim Bowie. Dave Gilmay.
Here.
Jade Parker.
Here.
Dane Wing.
Here.
Tyler Dunn.
Here.
Kathy Jacobs.
Here.
Melissa Tobin. You online? Nope. Okay. Patty Gordon.
Here.
Rebecca Lambert.
Here.
Betty Morrow.
Here.
You got it. Sean Roderick.
Here.
Kelty Bowden.
Here.
And David Twitchell. Here. Great. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Okay, now we will hear from the student representatives. High school and middle school, you guys can decide who wants to go first. So it looks like middle school. So is this Celine? Selena? Celia. Oh, Celia, sorry. Great. Microphone problems look for you too, just like I had.
Try it now. We're going to swap mics.
Noise. Whoa. Wait, come back. What is?
Hello, my name is Celia Bergdahl. I'm an 8th grader on Moose Island. First, I will report on the Katahdin team. They have a few post-assessments coming up due to that trimester ending this week. That includes investigative journalism and writer's workshop. In reading class, they will continue to read their books and create summaries to share with their peers. In 8th grade math, they will be starting a unit on systems and linear equations. In 7th grade math, students are finishing a geometry unit. And the 6th graders will be beginning a unit introducing positive and negative integers. On Moose Island in Miss Bickford's core class, we are going over the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We are also focusing on trials. In Miss Tucker's core class, we are continuing to work on our argumentative essays. And in Miss Turcotte's core class, we are solving mysteries using real DNA. Finally, the Moose Island team is looking for donations of electronic and mechanical equipment that people are no longer using. These items will be used for our new engineering unit. Please contact the Moose Island team to donate. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. And is this Carter?
Yes. Yes. So hello. As you already said, I'm Carter. I'm a 7th grader on Acadia. So that's what we'll be starting with. So on Acadia, we've been sixth graders were in math. We're making brochures of their favorite recipes for food, and then working with fractions and whole numbers from their ingredients and their recipes. They were like using those to make their recipes. So they were calculating ingredients, and then trying to figure out how much you would need to change them by for each serving size. Like if you wanted to have 20 cookies or like 30 cookies, how you change that. And then calculating the recipes for certain numbers of servings. And then they also have been studying factors. So right now they're working on finding greatest common factors. And then soon they'll move on to least common multiples. 7th graders are still in their geometry unit. They've been working on concepts with different angles and side classifications of triangles and ways to create angles with specific degrees using their protractors and other tools. In addition, students have been showing their understanding of horizontal, vertical, and diagonal cross sections on 3D shapes, which they created of paper or Play-Doh. Students have recently moved on to talking about circles. So they've been using compasses to make circles, and then with specific radii. Once the circle is created, the students are trying to find the diameter and circumference as well as the area of the circle. 8th grade has completed their deepening understanding of functions units. The week prior to February vacation, students began systems of equations units. They're going to take a deep dive in solving systems of equations with graphing, substitution, and elimination. So in addition to graphing linear functions on coordinate planes, students are trying to figure out if the system has one, many, or no solutions. So on our ELA classes, we've been learning about thesis statements and healthy relationships in our book, because we have book groups and we're learning about healthy relationships in those books. And Feed Your Body, which is one of our ELA classes, we're also writing, and we're doing a little bit of science too with dissecting frogs to learn how our body works for things like digesting foods and making energy, and then converting that energy. So in Mr. Holman's core classes, we've been learning about gratitude and kindness's positive effects on life. We have continued to learn about genetics. We're also learning about something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a way to use your emotions and thoughts to help change your behavior. We've also been learning about the brain. Sebago is finishing up their informational writing pieces about the Winter Olympics. They are hand-on projects They're working on chairs and other home decor items, and learning how to use new tools. So in their math in STEM classes, they're figuring out how to build swing sets. They're at least 15 centimeters tall and can support Lego people, the little minifigures. So students have a budget and have to plan out and purchase supplies from the lumber store, such as paper clips, craft sticks, straws, and pipe cleaners, as well as cardstock. So in the GT classes, GT Music and Art are working on their more singular goals where they try to work on their own projects with the teachers. In GTELA, we're working on our expository essays, and now we're just peer editing. After that, we're reading biographies, and we're going to make our own biographies of other people. And in GT Math, we have continued to work on our accelerated programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. Joseph?
Hello, I am Joseph here to report on Royal River and student government. For Ms. Ryder's Corps, we've been talking about data from a survey that the students took. We've been doing mean, mode, medium, range, and averages from the data from this survey. And we've now started talking about probability. In Mr. Mrazek's, we have started our research project about a hero from history. In Ms. Tracy's, we finished our argumentative essay and now have started making our own public service announcement. In Ms. Jules, we have built thermoses that need to keep water warm or cold with objects we brought from home. 6th grade math, we've been working on fractions and how to use them in operations like division. We've also started decimals and long division algorithm. 7th grade math, we finished learning about angles and triangles and now have started learning about understanding similarities. 8th grade math, we have finished our Unit 3 assessment about linear equations. In literacy, we are doing a group project where we write a story in groups that need to have figurative language. Student government, or anything school-wide, student government is having a winter carnival in the week March 14th to March 17th with plenty of activities and competitions for the students to participate in. Any questions?
Thank you, Joseph. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments for these awesome middle school reporters? Nice job. Thank you, Carter and Celia and Joseph. You did a great job, very thorough. We really appreciate all the information that you shared with us. So thank you. Hey, high school, Rocco or Abigail or both of you, or however you guys want to do it.
Hi, I'm Abigail Allen. I'm a sophomore at the high school, and I'm going to be discussing some of the extra and co-curricular stuff at our school with a lot of the sports seasons wrapping up. So starting off with basketball season has come to losing in semifinals and the girls losing quarterfinals. Skiing, the Nordic girls ski team won the Class B state championship, and boys alpine skiing were Class B runner-up, while the girls alpine skiing ended in 6th. Hockey Bucks in their preliminary game also wrapped up, and theater's been working on the production of The Little Mermaid, which is supposed to be setting the stage at the end of the month. Actually, with spring sports are starting up very soon. Softball and baseball arm conditioning start March 21st, and all spring sports will be starting on the 28th.
Thank you, Abigail.
Hi, I'm Rocco. I'm a sophomore. And I'm talking about Student Senate. So I'll go through each committee. Student Voice is looking at how to do Eurosphere, which is a dance that we have after Winter Carnival and before prom. And they've been updating our chalkboard that shows weekly events. Outreach Committee has no projects right now, and so they've been helping out with the other committees however they can. Health Center has been planning a new bulletin board out there. They're doing flowers with inspirational messages to start off the spring season. They've been also discussing masks and how to smoothly transition things as they may or may not change. School Spirit has been very busy planning Winter Carnival, which is happening next week. Right now, they're getting signatures for chaperones and they're finishing getting class t-shirts. SUSCOM has been discussing and trying to figure out what is going to happen with their gardens for the spring season. And Tech has been making the slideshow for the monitor easier to use and also helping to make forms for Friday Winter Carnival events. Council overall, we've mainly discussed projects for committees, and we had a discussion today about the new mask policy and the fear of bullying with masks being optional, and came to a consensus that it may be a conflicting transition with all the change at first, but overall, we think it would be okay.
Thank you, Rocco and Abigail. Are there any questions from the board for either one of our high school reps? No?
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. We do have a question.
Not a question, just,
Comment.
My thanks to you as from all of us for your reporting, and I'm so grateful that the student council talked about the same issues that we have been talking about as in mask and these other things. Thank you.
So you
Thank
are
you.
all welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting if you'd like, but if you need to leave, you have that option also. Thank you again for your reports. So now we'll go on to citizen comments. So first on the list is it Deanne Mushlet?
So at the last meeting, I'm sorry, my name is Deanne Mushlet, mother of four, two prior graduates of Maranicook, two current high schoolers. Casey is a junior and Lily is a sophomore. And at the last meeting, you said you wanted to hear. So this is how,
Excuse me just a minute. What town do you come from?
sorry, I come from Manchester.
Okay, thank you.
And regarding masks, you said you wanted to hear how it would impact our family. So I will talk about Lily, my sophomore, because on paper, she's the one most at risk. She has a genetic disorder that's rare called Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome. With this comes, she's legally blind, she has a bleeding disorder, and she's predisposed to pulmonary fibrosis. So her lung scar, if she were to contract COVID pneumonia, it would be a train wreck for her. It would be very detrimental because her lungs scar anyway. And we know COVID pneumonia scars healthy lungs. The biggest concern though is the bleeding disorder. We know COVID can mess with clotting and she doesn't clot. So when I talked to her team, because COVID was a big concern and so far we've kept it out of the house. And I know it's the masking that did it because her classmates were dropping like flies and it never came home. So when she found out that masking was going to be likely made optional, well, the last thing she said before we walked out the door was, I go to Maranicook Community High School, but it's not much of a community right now. It should just be Maranicook High School. As her mom, and I've always encouraged her to take responsibility for some of her own health decisions. So yes, she will continue to wear a mask, as will we, to keep this thing out of the house. So this is how this impacts us. And I know I'm the biggest advocate for following the science. In my day job, I work for Maine Medical Center. I'm a medical coder. I don't see patients, but I work in their charts. When they come in, they're admitted, they're treated, they're discharged, or they die, then their charts come to my desk. I have seen firsthand what this does. Sometimes it makes no sense. That's part of the problem with COVID is you don't know who's going to get a severe case and who's going to get a mild case. And I just don't want to take the chance with my own kid. So I have to stand up here and let you know that, she's having a minor meltdown over this. And I'm, as a mom, concerned as well.
Thank you.
Let me just say that I would ask that the guidance be through, like the CDC, for following what their guidance says. And I told her that as well. So if they recommend making it optional, and then down the road, they recommend cases are coming up, that be followed as well. Thank you.
Laurel Parker?
I'm Laurel Parker from Manchester. Thank you for the opportunity to speak yet again. I never thought I would be at so many school board meetings. It's been a difficult and tumultuous year, 2 years for everyone. Last meeting, there was a request put forth, just as you mentioned, for firsthand information and input from those on the front lines about their feelings of masking. And we have that. You have it in your packet. These statements are powerful. The staff does not want masking to be removed. There are numerous people who say they will leave, go on leave of absence or resign. Based on the comments, I could say the vast majority want masking. As a community, are we willing to risk our staff safety, both physically and emotionally? Again, we risk losing staff here. And at the beginning of this year, you all talked about your number one goal being the safety of staff and students. Things have changed. Yes, I understand. I just don't think we're there yet to remove masks. I understand there's this push, but it's removing our last line of defense. I, along with so many healthcare professionals and members of this community and the staff here, have shown concerns about removing the masks and letting an unchecked virus go through our staff, our students, and our community. Our student vaccination rate is too low to provide any sort of herd immunity, and we still have pre-K students and young kindergartners who can't yet be vaccinated. And then we have no contact tracing. We're allowing close contacts back in school. And I don't see anything about that changing. Those kids then sit next to my children and put them at risk. That's not fair. What is my right as a parent? So I have 4 big questions for you tonight. Number 1, how do you expect to staff the schools based on the responses from our own staff survey? Number 2, how are we going to revisit if things change? How often are we going to change? How often are we going to look at that every day? Are we going to look at the county number? Oh, we're moderate today, but tomorrow we could be high. How often would that be reassessed if we do remove the mask mandate? Again, number 3, the lack of contact tracing has been a struggle all along. Our nurses cannot keep up with it. They shouldn't have to. There's too much for them to do on top of a full task of taking care of kids in our communities that have chronic medical conditions. And now they have to do this. Again, how is it fair that a kid can bring COVID into the school and potentially pass it on to my kids, your kids, all of our kids?
Thank you, Laura.
Lastly, just last thing. My 4th question is, what are my options as a parent? If I feel it's truly unsafe, what are my options? Can I have remote learning for my kids when I'm worried about what I'm seeing in the community? As an emergency room physician in our community, I understand. I'm on the front lines. I see it every day. And I have to make these difficult choices and accept consequences in the choices that I make. Please remember, this is a big choice that you can make. You don't have to go with what other people are saying. Listen to our frontline staff. This is what they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethan Buck?
Good evening. My name's Ethan Buck. I am from Mount Vernon. I'm here with my wife, Vanessa. We have 3 young boys at Mount Vernon Elementary. One's 7 years old and the twins are 4. We've been kind of pro-mask or pro-option this whole time, really from the get-go. We've been seeing a lot with our kids. We sat back and watched. We seem to think that masking has been the way to go this whole time. I think as the years have gone on, or the last year especially, we've learned a lot. We're seeing kids are still getting their normal colds. They're still getting that kind of stuff. So the big thing with these masks is that your hands are constantly going to your face fixing this mask, okay? When you go to the military teaches you don't touch your face. Every time you touch your face, you're down doing push-ups, okay? There's a reason for that. Don't touch your face. Well, the masks are doing just the opposite of what we're trying to instruct here. So just food for thought on that one. My wife and I think a large majority of people that aren't here tonight are asking for the optional mask, which is the kind of the new CDC outline here. I guess, being on front lines, I'm not in a hospital, but I work in law enforcement every day. Do a ride along with a law enforcement officer one of these days and listen to the police radio. It's not COVID that's killing people right now. It's drug overdoses. It's suicides. It's left and right. It's constant. And it's not just something that is, it's not kids. It's a whole gamut of everybody. The COVID is totally off from the rest of it. It's the effects of what we're doing to kids and society is what's killing people. There's a little bit of back and forth on whether or not this should be effective immediately or, start on Monday. We're asking that it's effective immediately. The idea that we're going to go home tonight and tell our children that, well, you're going to have to wear a mask tomorrow, but not on Monday, we'll take them off. Think of the confusion that's going to cause. Again, it's just one more confusing thing that we've gone on with this whole COVID stuff. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. We're just asking that we make a sound decision, something that makes sense. Please make sense of this. To our teachers and school staff, we really can't thank you enough. My mom was a school teacher for 30 plus years, and I've seen the hard work that goes into being a teacher. We can't thank you enough. Your work is, greatly appreciated. The students need you. It's disheartening to see that or hear that we have staff potentially leaving because of a mask. I guess wear your mask if that's a decision that you need to make. Is if that's going to come down to it, you're a professional in the field, and we need you. Our kids need you. We want you to stay. And on that, there should be some comfort knowing that there's actually school districts right here in our own state that have been optional right along. Okay, Greenville, Dover, there's numerous schools around the state that have been optional. And talking with all those people, I have coworkers all over the state, talking with those people, there has been no significant increase or decrease in COVID because of the optional masking. It's gone over very well with these schools. Michigan was another one. Michigan has some great numbers on their website about CDC or their COVID, their numbers, they're reporting it. And the big thing is that some counties were mandated, some were not mandated. There is zero, I put it all on a graph, I'll give you the graph if you'd like it. There is zero evidence to show that counties that were not mandatory were any different, okay? So there's been no significant increase in any of that. lastly, I guess I would say that anybody here, everybody's watching you. So if you're out at the supermarket, Walmart or movie theater, whatever, and, you want my kid to wear a mask at school, but you're not going to do it yourself, that there's going to come a time where we're going to start calling on you. The last meeting, we had a school board member talk about going to a Patriots game. There's 65,000 people at a Patriots game. 3/4 of them are drunk. Yelling. It's a totally different environment. I'm not sure why kids should be at school wearing masks, but we can go to Patriots games. We're all going to see changes in our kids when these masks come off. I'm almost done. We're all going to see the changes in our kids. I promise you that. We need to start seeing kids' emotion. The kids need to see the kids' emotion. It's very important. It's going to change. And I really think that at some point, I'm hoping tonight we're going to move forward. And I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Amanda Philbrook.
Hi, guys. My name's Amanda Philbrook. I am from Manchester. Just wanted to say two quick things, really. I am here on behalf of the parents that would like masking to be optional. My heart goes out to the folks that are compromised one way or another. Families still have that choice to mask. And I think that after watching the last meeting online, I'd like to say thank you to the person that had suggested doing a survey. I had suggested doing a survey back in October here. I had also suggested doing a survey in November here. I feel like the community and parents have had some really great questions along the way. I don't ever feel like any of the questions are ever answered. I don't ever really feel like there's an agenda item to answer the questions that we're asking that we want answers to. And so I just kind of was hoping to get some clarification as to how we get those questions answered. And last but not least, I was hoping that someone over there could suggest polling the parents. I think that surveying the teachers was a great thing. I think that we got some really great telltale information out of all of that. I'd like to see what our community, what our parents want and how they feel. And I really feel as though that could be beneficial as to how our community wants to move forward. So that's it.
Thank you. Diane, do we have folks online that wish to comment? Okay. That's it for the people that have signed up. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to discuss our health and safety procedures and protocols.
So just very quickly, just so people know, the information that I usually put is out in the packet. I do have an update on the number of cases from vacation through Tuesday that I know about. So at the elementary level, we had 7 cases. At the middle school level, we had 0 cases. At the high school, we had 4 cases, and we've had 1 staff positive case. So again, in line with what's being reported, numbers, even within the school system, have dropped fairly dramatically. The county, as most of you, I know a lot of you guys have talked to, the county shows that we are now in the yellow or medium risk category. So that has also been a change. So that's, I mean, I don't really have much more than that to report at this point. So you guys all have my recommendation, and I'll let you guys debate it from there. David?
I'd like to make a motion to start our discussion. I would move that we keep our health and safety protocols in line with main standard operating procedure, and as such, make masking optional beginning Wednesday, March 9th, as was noted in the release from the main CDC, with the addition that we instruct the superintendent that if between meetings or before any further decisions are made by the board, if the county rating goes back up to red, or if there's other instructions from the main CDC changing what they just put out, that you immediately respond to that and restore masking if that happens.
Second. I'd like to make an amendment.
So, hold on, let me just repeat the motion that's on the floor. So David, let me make sure I understand what you said. So there's a motion on the floor by David that we follow the recommendation of the CDC and make masks optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, with the addition that if the county goes back into the red at any point, that we can go back into having masks be mandated again without a board meeting. Is that,
Yes.
and that was seconded by Tyler. Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, of course.
And
I don't believe the CDC put out 3.9. Was that Governor Mills' administration that did that? So that's wrong, number one. Number two, Kennebec County is already located in an optional masking county. So we need to start there. We are already in an optional masking county. So we need to start there, correct?
are you making an amendment or are you just
Yes.
rediscussing?
Now make an amendment that it needs to be changed to effective immediately because we are already in an optional masking county.
Second that amendment.
So there's been amendment to the motion that optional masks start immediately.
I second that amendment.
There's a second to that. Rebecca.
We've got to vote on the amendment. Yes. Okay. Is everyone okay to vote on the amendment?
I'm going to vote on the amendment.
To move it to optional masking, starting immediately.
With your,
With the other,
which includes the contact tracing, all that.
is everyone clear on what we're voting on?
I think there's some other folks that looked at.
I just have
Discussion?
one quick question. Is it possible to ensure that those students and the staff that are immunocompromised or that are wanting that extra supportive masks are provided a KN95, a clean one every single day? Do we have
We
that?
have that capacity to do that at this time. Yep. We've got plenty of masks that can take us through the end of the year. No problem.
But KN95?
Yes, that's what we've ordered. We have both the regular surgical, but we have the KN95 as well.
Okay,
Yep.
available to students
Yep.
and staff.
We have it available to staff right now. If you guys move it, we'll purchase the kid size KN95 masks. I don't know if we can get those or not, but I'll try.
I mean, I think for immunocompromised students to protect them, I think that that's reasonable because not every parent can afford to buy the KN95s to protect their child, and that's our job as a school board.
I'll make a donation of 20. Are there any other discussions on the amendment?
Okay, so we're good? Alrighty.
I guess I'm
Wait a
just
minute,
not
wait a minute.
totally clear what, all of the parts of what you said. I heard the part of amending what David's motion was to be immediate instead of March 9th,
Correct.
but what was the rest of it?
I wanted to make sure that when they said they were following the main SOP, that it also included the discontinuing of contact tracing and all the other stuff that they recommended. And they agreed that that was correct. My motion was just for the effective immediately because we're already in an optional masking location.
So right now, what we're doing is just
Basically voting on the start.
voting on that amendment, and then we're coming back to the rest of it.
Right. As it will, if we vote for the amendment, it'll be the motion as amended that we'll vote on. Okay, but right now, we're voting on the amendment. Okay, is everybody clear with that? Okay. The amendment.
Okay, so on the amendment, so Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Dave Parker,
Yes.
Dane Wing,
Yes.
Tyler Dunn,
Yes.
Kathy Jacobs,
Yes.
Patty Gordon,
Yes.
Rebecca Lambert,
Yes.
Betty Morrow,
Yes.
Sean Roderick,
Yes.
L.T. Bowden,
Yes.
and David Twitchell.
No.
Okay, so the amendment does pass.
We still need to vote on the motion as amended. So is there any further discussion? So what we'll be voting on now is that masks, if it passes, will be optional immediately.
Can I make an amendment?
Yes.
My amendment is that we provide masks to the immunocompromised children, KN95, a new one every day, along with staff, a new one every day, KN95.
Isn't that already,
It's not part of it now,
it's not part of the recommendation, but Jay's already put out in his recommendation that that was part
but
of
the
it.
board
He
has to
actually
move
just
to
said
it.
that we needed to recommend it.
Okay.
I second that.
I'll third that if you like.
So there's an amendment on the floor by Jay to add to the motion that we will provide KN95 masks for staff and students if it becomes optional to wear masks. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it was seconded by, who seconded that?
Dave.
Dane. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment.
Voting on the amendment to add the KN95. So Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yeah,
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa, oh, sorry, Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey.
Yes.
And David Twitchell.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to voting on the motion. So the motion, Donnie, you're going to have to help me with this. The motion that we have on the floor is that starting immediately, masks will be optional. And we will provide KN95 masks for all staff and students who request them. Is that,
And the superintendent.
thank you.
I'd like to make an amendment then.
If we follow parliamentary procedure, you really can only make 2 amendments to one motion.
So then discussion, it would be anytime the,
Yeah, he made one and she made one. That's 2. Go ahead. What,
anytime we go to red, we're gonna just automatically go back to mandatory masking, is that correct?
so that you're asking a question?
Correct.
Okay, so
Well, you said I couldn't amend, so then I said
Right,
I'll just
right.
discuss.
discuss, right? So you want to know if that means
If that's what he's saying, right?
that if we go back to red, we go back to mask. That's what that.
Is that, does the CDC recommend that, or what's the?
Isn't that the way it was set up? Coming up, you just said that our county was already an optionally masking county because it was in yellow.
Correct.
Well, if it was in red, it would not be. So what the motion was is that if we get back into a situation, red, where our community safety is at higher risk, we respond immediately through the superintendent rather than wait weeks or however long until the next board meeting.
and to answer your question, that is the CDC recommendation. It is in yellow, optional masking is appropriate, and in red, it is supposed to be mandatory. That's their recommendation.
And it says on this statement that in the second to last paragraph, if the name's not only the red, yellow thing, but also if the name CDC detects a concerning increase in the virus that poses a risk to the state's hospital capacity, or if a new variant poses a new and unforeseen risk, there may be new recommendations from them that then could. That's how I was hearing.
Jay, what's the Fed saying? What's the federal CDC saying on this?
The federal CDC is not mandating masks for anybody at this point.
So what's going to happen on the 9th when the Mills administration makes it optional masking for other states? We're still going to stick with the red. We just automatically have to go back.
No, the way I understand the priority notice is that it's turning over the control to the individual towns to make that decision on what metrics they're going to use if there should be a need to go back to masking. I agree that if a county designation, if Kennebec County is entirely red, then yes, I think that's probably something that should be on the table. But I also think we have to look at are any of our schools in outbreak status? How many cases do we have currently? You know, all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's just a one and done. I think you've got to look at all of the pieces that go into that. What's the positivity rate within the county? What are our current cases locally? And I think if we're looking at our schools, we've already kind of done that through the course of this entire pandemic, where we've said, like, for example, the middle school has had to be closed for 2 weeks because we've got to clean, we've got to, give a chance for the virus to work itself through, and then we bring it back, but we leave the other schools open. So that's kind of how I would approach this. I don't think it would be district-wide. I think it would depend on what our numbers show, what our positivity rate, what is the county showing, that kind of thing. So I think it would be easier to look at it school-specific than just the whole district altogether.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not playing hopscotch all year long, the rest of the year going.
Hopscotch is a very light way to put it. If there's a snowstorm outside, I put the coat on before I go out in it. If I see that the storm has stopped, it's gotten sunny, then I'll take the coat off. But if it starts storming again, I'll put it right back on.
I appreciate the clarification, Dave.
Somebody down there?
I just have a question. So if we do effective immediately, I didn't quite understand. I wasn't following the bus part so much. So is the state recommending the lift on the buses on the 9th, or is that just like a date that was just thrown out there?
Actually the federal transportation was lifted on February 25th. And it applied to any public transportation, including school buses. So actually the CDC lifted that guideline on the 25th. Obviously, we've kept it because we were waiting for this meeting because we should kind of do it all at the same time in my view, so.
Agreed. I just wanted to clarify that. piece. Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Anyone else?
I do.
Patty?
I have a question. So before we vote, I just want to make sure that, so I'm assuming, but we didn't say it outright, so I shouldn't assume that the things on the superintendent's recommendation sheet that are like the cool little starry thing at the bottom, those are all going to be happening. So Jade made a motion about masks being available. I mean, an amendment, but do we, I would really like to have all of those things be part of this as well. Can we assume that because they're written on here, they are? Or do we have to make a motion about, I know we can't make more motions, but do we have to
You
do
can make
something?
a second motion. You can't make more.
We can't make more
amendments,
amendments.
so
You can,
could make another
we can
motion.
vote on this motion and then we could make another motion and then we could amend another motion.
Do we need to do that, or do we need, would we need to do that to make sure all these things are part of it, or is it just
I
because?
don't think so, because a lot of what's there is guided by that quarantine and isolation SOP from the state, which has been very effective for us. So you know, I don't think you need to do those things. That's why I listed them out, because those are the things that I think are just part of this.
But is that everybody's agree, understand? That was my
Yeah.
question about the masks, like they're already on there,
Yeah,
but then I was told that we had to make those.
right.
So that's why I was.
And that's why I'm still
Right.
confused.
Well, I think on the masks are on here, but having the child size available for the students that want it or need it. I think you
Yeah, well-
needed us to authorize
Yeah.
that, is my understanding.
Okay, but we're in agreement that these other things are part of this motion and we don't need a whole new.
I would agree that it's part of the letters that, that Jay put out, because it includes like the isolation periods and the mask for the 5 extra days, which is still recommended by the CDC for somebody who's positive and returning, and it includes the pool testing still being available and continuing. So I would assume that. I don't know if anybody else disagrees.
I think there's only one that was, that needed to be changed.
Yeah, I did change it. It was just for the quarantine period wasn't 10 days. It was.
No, it's for the unvaccinated, that one.
Right.
That one was incorrect.
Right, so that was
Because
changed.
Yeah.
It was on, it's updated on the website. I guess, can we just read those so we know what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
Can you just read those?
Yeah, would you?
So, when you say then, you mean these things on the bottom?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Masking optional will include transportation.
That, great,
Our nurse, you meant all of them.
yes.
Our nurse offices, health clinics will require students to wear a mask when seeking medical care or showing symptoms. Positive students will continue to wear a mask on days 6 through 10 upon their return to school per the SOP. Unvaccinated students and staff not participating in pool testing and exposed will continue to quarantine. Thank you. Will continue to quarantine for 5 days per the SOP.
That one, that's not part of the SOPs. If you can find it, I will gladly read it, but that is not. If you're not contact tracing, you're not contact tracing, so there's no unvaxxed being exposed. That's, there's an outside, so if you're playing a sport, you're,
So what I've got is a message from Martha Israel, who works for the Department of Education as one of their nurse consultants, and I'm reading exactly her email. So if your school is not universally masking anymore, and the unvaccinated student is not pool testing, he or she needs to quarantine. That comes right from,
how does a DOE nurse supersede an SOP?
well, she's the one that implements the SOP. So that's her interpretation of what the SOP is. So I'm just going by the person at the DOE that, because I asked that question.
Jay, are you talking about exposed being positive or close contact?
Close contact,
So we're not contact tracing anymore.
right? Well, and
So
that's
I would
where
assume that would mean in the
that's where the
community.
gray area is.
Yeah.
If the school knows of someone who is positive in a classroom,
Right. Outside of
then,
school.
and the person is unvaccinated, we need to inform that unvaccinated person that they've been exposed and they should be quarantined,
Outside of school.
right?
If it's an outside of school program,
Outside.
because you will not, there's no contact tracing within the school.
Right.
So if a student is positive and Billy's next to him, we're not.
Right.
because
But
Billy's
if we
unvaccinated.
know, if the school knows Billy is positive, then we need to inform the family that of an unvaccinated student that they were sitting next to Billy. And I shouldn't be saying Billy, next to a student that was positive and your child is unvaccinated, so they should be quarantined.
So then we're going
don't
back
believe
to
that that
contact
is-
tracing then.
Right.
That would be what,
But we're not doing contact tracing.
But that
it's
is
more
contact
like,
tracing.
it's our responsibility because we
To
know of
inform.
something to inform. It's not like we're going out purposely contact tracing. It's if we know, we have to inform. That's our
So
responsibility.
it's just an information only. So you just tell the student that
Right.
you've been in close contact.
Right.
They're not forced into quarantine, they're just recommended to quarantine.
They are recommended to quarantine.
Okay, so then that verbiage probably should, we probably should add that if that's the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it reads as such, if unvaxxed and a close contact, that you will, I believe that's what it says.
It says will continue.
Will
Right,
continue to
so
quarantine
will
for
is
5
a,
days, yeah.
like a mandate, so
Right.
if that's the verbiage, then we need to change that so that it's not.
Right. Now use the language. there. And exposed, we will recommend. Right?
Yep.
Quarantine for 5 days. For the SOP. Right, so instead of will continue, we recommend. They quarantine for 5 days per the SOP.
Is that discriminatory against vaccinated kids too that want to know? Like, should it just not be a vaccine thing? But I don't know. I don't want to contact trace either. But I hate the unvaccinated, vaccinated division more than anything. And why would we only tell an unvaccinated kid you're a close contact if we know, but if they're vaccinated, we're not going to tell them, even though now we know vaccinated can also be contracted and transmitted, and it's just, it's so.
Well, and I'm just gonna say this, if a person has chosen to be vaccinated, then there is not, per the SOP, there is not a, I've got to inform, I'm gonna use Mandy, that Jay has COVID, so now I need to inform Mandy because she chose to get vaccinated. Like, that's where the contact tracing starts to kind of go a little, like, that goes aside. So it's the same concept. If someone is not vaccinated and we're not at least informing them, they can't make the right decision for themselves, whatever that decision is. We need to at least inform them you're exposed.
So, and just a little bit of clarification on that, there's HIPAA laws, right? So those kids that are going to be notified, it's not like the teachers know their vaccination status unless the child tells them. It's up to the nurse to notify those parents. It's nothing that anybody else knows about. It's just like, if I'm going to notify them though, I'm notifying them because they potentially need to quarantine. A student who's vaccinated does not need to quarantine. So therefore they do not need to be notified to be able to make that decision to quarantine. Because as a vaccinated person, you don't have to quarantine. That is not the recommendation. So
I can't even.
So then how does the school know which student is vaccinated and which one's not?
Say that again.
How does the school know who's vaccinated, who's not? Is that,
That is something that we have through nurses' records.
so they know?
But yeah, the
How'd they
nurses
get that?
are the only ones in the school buildings that know that.
How do they
Because
get
we
that?
have to have that health information.
I mean, there's.
And that's not a new thing.
Right, that's not.
My children were never vaccinated during school, but the laws required that if there was an outbreak of something in the school, way before COVID, my children needed to stay home. And this is still going to apply after we get through this mess. And it didn't make me mad. We dealt with it. And, you know, it was to protect my children and to protect the school community because of the fears of them spreading it. They never did, but, so this is, and it wasn't something that was broadcast. It was just, we were told by the nurse or the office, if something's going on, your guys need to stay home this day or these days.
I just think we can do better. I think we can choose better language. And I think that, I don't know why we follow these things to a T even with verbiage, because we can do better. And I think that if it's a no contact tracing, and this is literally a case by case scenario where you go, hey, I learned Becky's positive, no matter who I am sitting next to her, if we're doing a courtesy, it's a courtesy call to just say, little Billy next to you, he was exposed. And we don't care about their vaccine status because it's irrelevant. And that's why I don't even know if we should have this in here, because if it's just a, maybe we courtesy call, maybe we don't, because we're not contact tracing. So it's just it's a one-off, it's a maybe sometimes, we shouldn't define it if we're not going to make it.
I think, though, by not including it, we put ourselves at legal liability. And I don't,
Let's say I'm vaccinated, she's vaccinated, well, kids, okay? 2 kids vaccinated side by side.
what if I was a parent of the child who's a close contact? You say, well, why didn't you call me just because they're vaccinated? But you called the other kid on the other side who's not vaccinated. When is that fair? And so they get.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm
I
saying
know.
that the Department of Education has given us outlines of where we have responsibility, and this is one of them. None of us on the board know who is vaccinated and who is not. The only people that know that are the nurses, and they're the ones making that call.
There's undeclared people who choose not to share, and they are what they are. And
I mean, I'll use myself for example. When I was in high school, I was on the speech debate team. I was required to submit my vaccination records to the school to be on the sports teams. So at minimum, all of our athletes, student athletes, have that information on file with the nurses. On top of that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they still can get access to our vaccination records through Maine General. Because if we have an allergy or we have something that's just not reported between our, parents and the school, but there's an emergency, the nurses need to be able to react to that. And again, only they have it. So I think, given that fact, leaving the language, adjust it so it complies correctly with DOE's recommendation, but I think we need to keep that so we don't get sued. And I think that's the larger point. I don't think it's wise to stray too far from what DOE is recommending and then put ourselves at legal liability.
I think you just remove the word unvaccinated.
But
get what
I
you're
think
saying.
the point is the vaccination status is where we have liability. Like
I mean,
we have a
that's like-
legal, we have a responsibility per the Department of Education who regulates us to comply with it.
Not under the word recommendation.
Yeah.
But we haven't mandated COVID vaccines. in our
Right.
schools.
Once there's a mandate, once it's a law, that's different. But you can definitely be held liable legal, but if it's a recommendation, that's a recommendation. We're recommending it, like sunscreen. It's
So-
recommended.
But I think the notification part isn't a recommendation. I think that is a requirement if we don't
But what is the,
have universal.
what does the word say? Is it required, recommended? Do we know?
In the SOP?
Yeah.
The next, while you're looking, can I just say the next thing on this list of recommendations? No, the note as part of the superintendent's recommendation, the next one is, although we're not contact tracing, we will follow the CDC SOP isolation and quarantine guidelines when aware of positive cases. So if we're agreeing that we'll do that, then maybe we don't need to even say the one above if that is part of the CDC SOP isolation and quarantine guidelines. You know what I mean? Or am I reading that wrong?
The last one is for positive. Students who are positive have to follow the isolation quarantine.
Want to wear
So
pause? Oh,
in the SOP, under our school responsibilities, the first bullet says communicate with the family of a COVID positive case and share guidance on isolation and quarantine for the COVID case and for family members living in the same household. The last bullet says advise close contacts to seek a COVID-19 test 5 days following exposure. That's what it says.
But
That's
isn't there
the
verbiage in
school
there?
responsibilities under the SOP, under the isolation and quarantine.
So then we're going back to contact tracing.
That's if you're close, if you're
No,
contact
that-
tracing.
That says the family of a COVID case. That's what the SOP is. So communicate with the family of a COVID case and share guidance with that family.
Right.
Correct.
Right,
on-
but the continuation is to notify those who have been exposed, which is contact tracing again. Unless I misheard what
Says-
they
No,
just
you
read.
said advise,
Says advise close
close
contacts to seek a COVID-19 test 5 days following exposure. That's under the school section, then.
Don't you love how it's got all this gray area?
That's never clear.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say that you even need to quarantine. It says it's recommended that you quarantine, but that if quarantine is not feasible,
it's imperative that an exposed person wear a well-fitting mask at all times when around others for 10 days.
Right.
So there's no requirement, it's a recommendation.
Right, and it does say under contact tracing is a process of identifying and notifying individuals or their families who have had close contact with someone infected with COVID-19. Second and final bullet in the contact tracing is schools may conduct contact tracing for all student, staff, and visitors if feasible. For schools where contact tracing is feasible, then there's a whole list of bullets there.
So what determines feasibility then? I guess is the next statement. What determines?
I think bottom line is if you're not contact tracing, you're not contact tracing. If you're positive quarantine. That's
So we have a duty to notify those that are unvaccinated because they would be required to mask if they're exposed. And that's part of the SOP off of what somebody else just read down here. So if the person who is unvaccinated is required to wear a mask for 10 days following exposure, and then that's where you get into, you're going to be labeling people because if some kids are wearing masks and some kids aren't, and I'm not wearing a mask, then all of a sudden I'm wearing a mask because, well, guess what? I've been, identified as a close contact. Now it kind of lets everybody know what their
But that's
vaccination
the
status
SOP.
is.
They haven't deleted anything. They keep everything in and they just add their amendments. So like as you read about close contact tracing, then you read like down on like bullet number 5, it says schools are not required to contact trace whatever. So that like wipes it all out. So if you contact trace, and I guess in my opinion, which I hate saying, you would follow the contact tracing. If we don't contact trace, like it is recommended, there is no contact tracing.
Then this does not apply.
But a positive student is still, that's different than, so I don't know where this unvaxxed notifications fits in.
So getting back around to where we're at. So Patty, I'm coming back to you because you were the one that had the question about if all of this was included in the motion.
Like if we hadn't already made 2 amendments, I would have made an amendment to make sure that these things were part of the motion.
Right.
But I can't do that. So
Have we agreed that they are or are not part of the motion?
Right.
I don't know. That's the question. And if they are, do we want them to be? So I think what we should do right now is vote on the motion that's on the table. And if we need to make another motion about this other stuff, then we make another motion around that. But we need to take care of the motion that we have on the table right now, which is,
You can do it.
it will be, masks will be optional starting immediately. And all the other, John is going to have to read the rest of it for me.
That we keep our health and safety procedures in line and make masking optional as of immediately. With the addition that we instruct the superintendent if between meetings or before decisions are made by the board, if the county rating goes back to red, or if there are other instructions from the main CDC, that he immediately change it back to mandated masking.
So that's the motion on the table that we're voting on right now. Is everyone?
Did that take into, and then we have to add the section of that Jade added, that we provide the KN95 masks for staff and students who are immunocompromised.
Okay. I think it was just for anyone that wanted one, right?
Yeah, I think it included all that
Anybody
requested,
that requested one.
How are you going to determine?
right? Because then you're getting into HIPAA stuff if you discriminate, because I may consider myself immunocompromised, but you may not, and then it gets into all that stuff. So it's better if it's just as requested.
So we're taking out the immunocompromised.
Just if they request one. Is everybody all set on that, Tyler?
Not really, but, so we can pass or fail this. Or let me hypothetical. So we pass this, we can sit here and then start marking it up after we pass it. If we need to
It's not
clarify.
that, we wouldn't be marking that one up. We would be making another motion. that
Right,
would-
but the motion would effectively be, we can start making adjustments.
We can make adjustments.
Okay, with other motions. Okay.
But you can't go too far down that road, though.
It's sort of,
Go ahead, Patty.
sort of hard for me anyway, because I would like to support the motion with these things. So that answer to Tyler, which I heard it, yes, but no, doesn't make me feel clear about whether we can.
As you just read it, the motion was I recommend or keep with the health and safety protocols that remain in line with the standard operating procedure. And then Jay listed these
These are
things
the
that were
standard
standard
ones.
operating
Okay.
procedure.
So I'm thinking. they're
So
in there.
in that effect, I would suggest that they are included.
Okay.
And if in a later motion, someone wants to adjust one of them,
Okay.
that would happen. But right now,
Right.
as long as nobody says I got it wrong, that's what I intended it to be.
So is everyone good with that now? Does everyone understand what we're voting on and what it includes?
So it includes everything on that.
Yes.
Yep.
In the way that is written, it does. In the way that it was, the motion was expressed. Good. Anything else? Ready to vote?
Okay. Here we go. Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade Parker,
Yes.
Dane Wing,
No.
Tyler Dunn,
Abstain.
Kathy Jacobs,
Yes.
Patty Gordon,
Yes.
Rebecca Lambert,
Yes.
Betty Morrow,
Yes.
John Roderick,
No.
Kelty Bowden,
Abstain.
and David Twitchell.
Yes.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes. 2 no and 2 abstain. So it passes.
Okay, so the motion has passed, that masks will immediately become optional. Are there any adjustments or additions to the agenda?
I can take this off now.
You can. Sean?
Well, one reason I didn't vote for it is because it says that students that are wearing masks should be supported, and all students needs to be supported, and we shouldn't be talking in classes if masks are right or not. We made this vote, and I have heard from students that it's not professional for teachers, anybody to be talking to students about what their parents choose to do when it comes to their health and safety. And I ask that all students be supported. So that's all I have to say.
Tyler?
I want to go back to and talk about the parents that, because of the decision we made, feel uncomfortable. I've got a couple of requests from parents about remote learning if we've done it, which we have now done. So what options do they have if they feel that cases are still spiked and that they want their child to be remote for safety reasons? Is there, what is the district policy in regards to that?
there's not really a policy. It's something we would do with any student. If they bring in documentation that shows that they need accommodations, then we'll work through like our 504 process and make sure they get those accommodations.
Okay.
And we've already done that. So it's just a matter of them coming forth, speaking to their, like the teacher, the building principal, and then we can start that whole process. So, anybody brings anything in that has that medical documentation, we're gonna do whatever we can to support them. Absolutely.
But I think I want to be clear, just because you want your child to wear a mask and they don't feel comfortable, that doesn't mean we're going to, no different than, I know of parents who didn't want their child to wear a mask, and because they made some good arguments on why the schools could be accommodating, they were denied those accommodations. So I want to be clear to
No,
people,
there's got to be medical.
there's got to be medical reasons. It goes both ways. This is a two-way street. I mean, we can make arguments.
So no adjustments or additions to the agenda? Okay,
Actually, I do have one. All right.
go ahead, Dane.
Discussion. If everyone's aware, I know we did pass that there's like 7 half days coming up, or that we've already passed. That means there's a early release day for the next feasible future, correct? Sometimes 2. Is there a way that we can take some of those half days and make it just 1 day? That makes sense? That way, just a suggestion, just a discussion. I'm pretty sure we have 1 full week left of school, 1 full week of school, or maybe even 2, without having some type of half day.
I think the only problem with that is we might be getting into how many days. We may have to add days to the end of the school year, because if it's a half day, then it still counts as a full day, versus if you have a full day, it's a full day. A half day, if they're having lunch, it counts as a full day.
Can we remove some half days though? Can we remove some of them? There were some weeks that there's 2 in 1 week.
Yeah, remember that March one, that was actually already there. That wasn't one that was
Right,
added in.
I understand that, but we added 1 to it.
The half day was already there, and then the full workshop was already there. The added in half days were the 4th, the 11th, and the 25th, as well as April, 8th, sorry. Yeah. 8th, May 6th, and then May 20. So then everything else that was there previously. We had already scheduled that.
Right.
And those days were aligned with our area schools. So like the technical center that we go to, they know about those days. So yeah. So I'm going to say this to the board. If you do that, and again, I'm very uncomfortable saying this, but I think it has to be said. If you make a change now, you are going to, and I know some people on this board aren't going to like this, but I'm going to say it. And again, I'm very uncomfortable. If you make a move now to change that, the morale in this district is going down. So I'm just putting that out there. And I know I'm really uncomfortable saying that, but I've got to be very truthful about that. This is, you have one big decision you just made. If you now say we gave you days, but now we're going to take them away, morale is going to be shot. So I'm just being very honest. So,
Okay, I'm just trying to support the parents that are reaching out that are
yeah, no, I
massive
get it.
complaints.
Yeah, I get it.
And I'll take full blame. That was partially my fault for not even looking forward into the future and lining the days up. So I'll accept that.
So to touch on those half days though, I thought we were pretty clear that they were supposed to just be for the teachers to plan, and there would be no meetings or anything additional in there. And that has changed, and there have been
That
things
has
added.
not changed. I'm not sure where that's coming from or why it's coming the way it is. When we presented that information, we said that we would use that time to help the teachers but we also said we would do it building based. We gave the principals an hour building based, and then the last hour and 10 minutes is teacher directed. They can choose to work on what they need to work on.
So is this a item that's being added to the agenda? Because if we're going to have this discussion, we need to add it to the agenda or so that we can have a full-on discussion about it. So if this is something that we want to add, or are we just going to?
No, I would like to speak on this, so I
You
would
wanna
like it
add it
added
to
to the agenda
Okay.
because, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So we'll make it 8.
You added it after the budget workshop.
8F,
We'll do it during
during the action items. So you want to just, what is it you want me to put there? You want to discuss the
Yes,
extra?
I want to
days?
discuss this further because
Okay.
if things are going to be thrown at our face, I have some things I want to say about it.
Okay. So we'll put that for Ada. Okay. Okay, so moving right along, I think we have something that we're going to celebrate. Lighten the tone a little.
So mine's really brief, and I wish he was still here, but Carter Bennett, the 7th grader, he is one of the members on our math team. And on February 17th, we had a virtual math meet. So it was across the state of Maine, all middle schools who participated in math counts regionally. They held that at their school. And we had 4 students participate in that meet, and only 51 students in the entire state of Maine go on to the states, and Carter Bennett was one of them. So, pretty exciting.
Thank you for sharing that, Kristen, and give him our congratulations.
Michael.
Good evening, Michael Harris reporting from the high school. As you know, I'm from away, and that's significant because on arrival to the high school, one of the questions that I asked, meeting with Kate Taylor before starting, was how many unfilled teaching positions were there at the high school? And Kate replied to me, none. And offering an outsider's perspective, very happy to hear that because that really is exceptional. And I appreciate as a principal, but also I want to appreciate people that work behind the scenes to make that happen. Staffing is perhaps the most critical component for meeting the needs of our students. So definitely something for celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so now we have some reports. We have
Communications committee.
does anyone have any questions for any of the principals or adult ed that were in our packet? Dean?
The elementary school is going to still be like assigned seating for lunches and
We're going to follow the same thing that we've been doing at lunchtime because again, the idea that a student that may be coming back has to wear a mask and we want to make sure social distancing is happening in the cafeteria. So I've instructed them to leave the lunches as is, at least for the time being.
perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions about any of the reports? Okay. Now the committee reports.
Chelsea's up first.
So the communications committee met.
All right, so we kicked off the idea of opening up or reinstituting the communications committee. And a few of us got pretty excited about that. That got all, we had a meeting. It was really important to the whole board. I just know that not everybody has the time and capacity to do it, but I know it's very important to everybody. So basically, we're bringing this back to the full board to kind of talk about what we talked about so that everybody's in the same loop. At our meeting, Becky, myself, Patty, Jay all came. And I think Tyler, you were interested in being on our committee. We have you absent.
Yeah, the email went to my old Marana school email, not my board email.
Oh.
Noted.
Yeah. Yeah, we
That
figured
little
out.
dash, that little dash.
That's not
Yeah.
effective communication on our part.
The communication of money, miscommunication, for the communication.
So clearly his committee is needed. I can only go up from here. Okay.
Therein lies the point.
So I guess maybe I'll just read this to you. I'll just read this to you guys, okay? We'll get on to our next thing. All right, so the need for the communication committee, of course, I am going to deviate before you read this, was to help create a bridge communication. It's vital now more than ever. So here we are. We're going to give it a go. We're all rookies at it, actually, but I think we can shape it into something really great. So we came up with a goal. Our goal review was to establish an effective communication process between the RSU board and all of its stakeholder groups. We reviewed our goal and we were in agreement that this should be the mission of the reformed committee. We established a spokesperson, hello, and I will report back to the board. Policies for review, and I read into some of these, and they're definitely old policies, but I don't know if they're bad policies, so we'll review those policies in the policy handbook that we need to review that will help guide this committee. Quick question though, are we reviewing this as the policy committee or as the communication committee?
Just as the communication committee so that we know what's already in policy and then how do we modify from there, like with the next thing we'll talk about the focus groups. So,
Super.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got board communication, school board staff communications, public participation at board meetings, board powers and responsibilities, school board meetings and agendas. So there would be discussion ensued about how best to facilitate conversation between the board and all the various stakeholders, like mentioned, surveys and such. Members talked about how to facilitate respectable conversation that builds trust with all stakeholder groups, students, staff, parents, community members, etc. Ideas included surveys, focus groups, that was the word, focus groups, task force with more expanded membership and social media.
I just want to say our meeting was way more exciting than she's making it sound. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Jay spoke of a survey in another district that he referenced, and that helped identify various components of successful schools and identified metrics to review on an annual basis to guide work for the committee. The group wondered if including the district human resource director may bring a needed perspective to the process. Because it's kind of flirting with a line in the sand and HR-ish like communications. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to communication appropriately. Strategies. What strategies need to be investigated that align with policies? So the main idea that rose to the top was a way to facilitate focus group meetings among various stakeholders in the group. Jay will begin researching best practices for focus groups and bring back information to the next meeting. But I think the idea was to break off into smaller focus groups and really have a roundtable-like conversation because some people aren't comfortable standing here for a limited 2 minutes publicly or in front of other constituents. So it's kind of more about yeah, please do. Oh, please do.
So we were thinking about having these focus groups, and they'd be separate focus groups, probably with different either employee groups or different stakeholders, whether it be community members, parents, students, whoever. And we would be able to facilitate conversation between them and find out from them how they like to communicate the best, what they think they're not getting from us, because clearly, you know, what we think we're putting out there is not being received or heard the way we think it should be. So, right. So we were really excited about the focus group idea, and we kind of wanted to bring it back to see where you guys were with that, and if you thought it was a good direction to be going in, if this is what you, the vision that you guys had for this committee.
Can I just add one tiny thing to the end of that? So the end of that would just be, the purpose for the whole thing is just to improve communication between the board and all stakeholder groups. So we thought just chit chatting around the table and not like somebody speaking at someone or anything like that would be the way to do it. Right. So,
Not in a formal setting.
not
like
in a
this,
formal setting.
Like we're on a side of a table.
Right. To begin anyway.
Right, to begin.
Do you?
Any thoughts on that? I think it's a great idea. I think it would be a really useful tool to get more input, which is what we've been asking for all along. So thank you for all that work and thought that you put into that. I think it would be great.
Because the thought was is that surveys are just kind of outdated and they don't work very well and the response isn't that great. So we'd rather have something that is maybe a new fresh idea that may gather a little bit more attention and support.
And I need to mention the survey that was circulated was not put out by the board. So this is not something that the communication committee was tied to clarify.
So the communications committee is going to be, who are the stakeholders? Anyone that wants to participate or I got lost somewhere. in there.
Students, staff,
Gotcha.
anybody,
Who's
parents,
got a stake in the
All right.
school,
yep,
Yeah, that's what it is.
taxpayers. anybody.
taxpayers, yeah.
Any other questions or comments for the communication committee? Do you have another date set for another meeting?
The
or-
next meeting is March 29th.
Yes.
We'll do it by Zoom.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Curriculum. Our next meeting is the 28th of April. Facilities meet?
Yes, we had a brief meeting.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I missed that one. It says I'm absent. Didn't realize I missed it.
So that one was just a special one where we reviewed the woodlot proposal that Sean Drinkwater brought forward, and with some of the, I'll just summarize very quickly, with some of the community members that were there, it was brought to our attention that more work needed to go into that before we moved it forward. So we'll talk again as a facilities committee at the next meeting, and then if it warrants it, we'll bring forth a proposal, so.
And Jay,
Oh, yes, go
we
ahead,
did have a
Dave.
volunteer by one of the members, community members that was present, Henry Whittemore. And I talked to him and he would volunteer his time as a forestry expert, management expert, and willing to come on board and help us out.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Health advisory, anything from that?
I am on that.
Anything from that? No? Policy committee?
Oh, I think that's me too.
Yeah, that is you too.
So our first reads are in the packet, and let us know if you have any thoughts or comments about them. And the next meeting we have is March 22nd.
And then Boston Bear Society. Oh, right, that's Kim. She's not here, so, okay. Thank you. So on to the action items. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the,
We accept the minutes of January 19th.
Second.
I accept January on
it should
that.
be, that date's not right. Hold on. I don't think it's January 19th. Computer did that one.
Oh,
Alright,
And I
that's fine.
think the minutes are for February.
It's February 6th.
February
February
16th.
All right, so February 16th, I'll move them.
And I'll second them.
Any discussion?
All righty. Dave Gilmay.
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey.
Yes.
And David Twitchell.
Yes.
Unanimous.
So is there a motion to accept the donations as written?
Motion to accept the donations as written.
Tyler and
Kelsey.
Any discussion?
Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
And David Twitchell.
Yes.
Unanimous.
And we have second reading of 3 policies. Any discussion or is there a motion for the first one, IHBAA, Individualized Education Programs? Motion.
I move that we accept IHBAA as presented.
So David. Yes. Any discussion?
All right, Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey.
Yes.
David
Yes.
Twitchell, sorry.
So do we have a motion to, for BCB conflict of interest?
I move we approve BCB conflict of interest as it's written.
Second. Second.
Any discussion?
All right, Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Unanimous.
And a motion for BCC, also GBCA nepotism.
Motion to accept BCC, also GBCA nepotism as written.
Second.
Any discussion?
All right, Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
David Twitchell.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
So the next one is to consider an exception to policy BCC nepotism, and I'm going to let Jay talk about that.
I'm gonna flip to that. So we are requesting to employ a bus driver who is a family member of a board member. They live in the same household, and as you know, we struggle to find licensed bus drivers. So approving this exception would be beneficial to the district, the students, and help to fill an immediate need within the district. So per the nepotism policy, we're bringing the approval of this exception forward to the board, and I'm requesting that we move that exception forward.
Is there a motion?
I move that we bring that exception forward.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just want to say, great, we need all the bus drivers we can get.
Absolutely.
So if someone here wants to drive a bus, I'm probably willing to make it happen. So, thank you.
Yeah. Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Abstain.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes, and you don't want me driving a bus. I'm not volunteering.
Kelsey,
Yes.
and David Twitchell.
Yes.
So we have 10 yeses and 1 abstention. So it passes.
Does that open it up for any spouse? I might just volunteer my husband.
Bring it forward.
So that was an exception for just this one. We'd have to do an exception every time, so.
But that's still a worthwhile consideration.
Absolutely.
Uh,
You know anybody, you're related to anybody, we need bus rides.
Okay. But what was important to me that it is only by exceptions that are brought to the board
Right.
because we don't want a pervasive atmosphere of nepotism, but certain circumstances that is, and this is very important.
Okay. So the next one on the list is consideration of an overnight trip. The Acadia team from the middle school is requesting to go to Campton Hills State Park, May 24th to the 26th. Is there a motion? I move we approve the trip.
Second.
Any discussion? I just want to say, I was so excited when I saw this on the agenda because it's like, yes, finally they can go on trips and do, they've done this trip for many years and it's been awesome. So I'm really glad to see that it's on the agenda.
Yes. It was wonderful to see.
Yep. All right, Dave Gilmay,
Yes.
Jay Parker,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
and Kelsey.
Yes.
And David.
Yes.
Unanimous, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion around the extra half days that we granted. So, good discussion.
Well, I just wanted to add that they're not going to vote to take them away, here ain't them, but first we want to talk about teacher morale. Well, I've heard from a number of teachers who really thought, and I'll take responsibility. The vote's my responsibility. So first, they thought those days were for them. I've heard from a number of teachers in 3 different schools who thought that time was for them. Somehow that was, people hear what they want to hear. I get that. I work with votes, but I apologize for you that I didn't vote for what you wanted. And then second, I've heard from a number of parents who this has become a real struggle for childcare. So I apologize for you. And in the future, we talk about morale. I hope we can look at these half days and really give the teachers what they want. Because to me, I don't really care if the teacher sits there for a half day and stares at the ceiling. They're under a lot of stress. And if that's what that teacher needs for that half day, that's what they need. And that's what I thought I was voting for. So I apologize to all parties involved. And I just want to put that on the record because there's been a lot of communication.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else?
Can I make a motion? I want to make a motion that those half days that we allotted are used only by the staff and are not touched by meetings, by principals, by added, whatever you may call it. But it's time that the staff can take for their planning for their classes, which is what I was under the impression I was voting for when it came to us. Or whether it be they set up, something that actually gives back to the teachers. Some self-care, not meetings, not additional work, but actually give them back that time that they've asked for.
So there's a motion on the floor. I guess I don't understand the motion.
So my motion is that the half days that we gave back for the teachers is for the teachers to use at their discretion, not for administration to touch.
And if I may, that's, as it's presently being administered, it's sort of half and half. That half day has been split, administration half and teachers half, sort of for administration things for the teachers, but it takes their time for that half of that time.
So they only get
And
an
that would be
hour.
why the motion is to change that to be totally for the teachers.
No, we don't have a second. Is there a second before we have any more discussion? We need to have a second.
I'll
Unless
second
there's,
it.
unless there's questions. Oh, did you say you second?
I'll second it to allow discussion.
Now we'll have discussion. Patty?
My question was going to be, so Tina, I don't know if this is allowed, but I would love to know what you're thinking, if you don't mind being like put on the spot. because
I just want to make this clear, and I'm going to try and be, teachers didn't ask us to bring that proposal to you. We, as administrators, brought that proposal to you because we have a lot that we do need teachers to do, and we didn't want to add it to their regular workday. As a tier 3 school in Wayne, my job is to provide extra professional development that I don't want them to have to do after school and pay them to do it. I'm asking for an hour. My teachers are on board with that hour. They're willing to do a book study with me. That's a course that I've asked them to do. I talked to them about it. We've all talked to our staff about what that hour will be about. And I'm giving them time whenever I can give them time. So if I have a staff meeting, I'm not expecting them to be there for an hour. We get what's done, and I give them time. We give them the time when we can, but we as administrators asked for this time so that we could provide professional development and provide time for the teachers. So when we had asked for that, that's what we had asked for. So I understand there's a misperception, but we as administrators, this wasn't ever brought to the teachers before we brought it to you. We as administrators brought it to Jay and said, we need to do this, our teachers need time, and we need time to work with our teachers. So I'm just clarifying that.
Thank you. David?
I had a couple of things that are at least partially relevant. One, I spoke with a past teacher from a different district, and they had tried this, and it had worked very well for a few years, and then that administration took it over, so the teachers got no time, and it fell by the wayside. However, on the other side of that issue, I did not misunderstand what the original intent was, that it was to be split up. And my understanding from Jay and what I know of the administration thing is that they have been very emphatic that the principals not take more than their half, that the amount of time allotted for the teachers not be interfered with, as that example I gave that happened. And I think that needs to be watched, not by intentional trying to hurt, just people adding things in. But I like the way it's been set up, that it gets split, that the teachers do get time and that the administration gets to use some of that time to help the teachers also.
I guess I'd just say, like, my point in bringing it up was I wasn't trying to, and now I said it, but I guess I'll take those back. I wasn't trying to take the days away back from the teachers. I was trying to figure out a way. I basically felt like I screwed up by approving this and not looking ahead and like, all right, we already have this, we have that. Is there another day we could do? That was my thinking. But obviously it's what's done is done. And
But for the parents, because you were very right to bring up that concern, I have heard of how in similar situations there has been organization done, and I'd have to get more specifics on it, but where there was a support system set up so that there was activities, perhaps at the school, is the way I'm recalling it, that were set up, that were run perhaps partially by volunteers, partially by the schools, to give the students activities that would keep them supervised and relieve the parents from at least part of that. All of a sudden, they've got a half day they can't. So I'm very supportive of us keeping this for the teachers, but can we think about things that might help the parents with that too, that we could support?
like would Sean volunteer to watch the kid or something.
After he drives the bus.
All in, all in.
Um,
I'll take every Friday out.
Any other discussion before we?
I think to David's point, this was a long time ago, but I remember when I was at Reed Field, we had the after-school daycare program, and that, filled the gap. I think on half days it was until 2:30. On full days it was till 5 p.m. I don't know if I remember how it was run, but I think if we can, put it out there that we're looking to organize something like that, I think it's a worthwhile thing to make up for the gap in childcare that this creates. But I think at the same time, I don't know if I think I too misunderstood what these days were for originally, but I think hearing for it now, there's no point in taking them back. And I think the way it's been explained, I think it needs to be the way it is with the split.
I'll let someone else go.
I didn't know. I don't think there is any. Go ahead.
All right, nope. I mean, I'm not gonna vote to change anything, but I can think of 4 different instances, and it's wearing thin on me that decisions we make are causing staff morale to go down. And I'm hearing about this, whether you want it, I am hearing about it from teachers. People aren't comfortable always going to their boss. They have told me they're not comfortable, and that's unfortunate in any situation. And so I'm not gonna vote to change anything, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. And I think it's important that you did say that, because I think we have to really look at that and figure out what we need to do differently to make sure that that's not continuing to happen. Whether it's ask more questions, make sure we're clear on what we're voting for, whatever it is, we need to figure out what we need to do to help that situation. So thank you for bringing that up. And now we'll vote on the motion.
Yep. You guys are ready.
Can you repeat the motion, please? Donna?
That those half days are only for staff, not for principals to take for planning for their classes or something.
Okay. That's not what it was? Okay, well then I'm gonna ask you to repeat it then, Jade.
So the motion was to give the time back to the teachers to use as they needed to, or if principals need to, they can use it as self-care. But it was giving that time back to the teachers for pre-planning, because from my understanding, that's what it was for.
Okay.
Give the time back to the teachers for
Their pre-planning, it was giving that time to the teachers to allow for that. And self-care, if they wanted to schedule, like a self-care situation, workshop, whatnot, that's fine.
Okay, we're good. You good? Okay. Is that, you all set? Okay.
Sure. Dave Gilmay.
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yes. Dave?
Yes.
Dane?
Yes.
Tyler?
No.
Kathy?
No.
Patty?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here for that whole thing.
Okay. Rebecca?
No.
Betty? Excuse me.
No.
Yeah, Betty?
No.
Sean?
No.
Kelsey?
Pete, I'm really glad you said all that, and I feel like for some reason we missed that piece back in the beginning, but it sounds great. And I don't think we need to micromanage how you guys are working this. So, no.
And David Twitchell?
No.
So 1, 2, 3 yeses, 1 abstention, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 7 no's, excuse me. So motion doesn't pass.
So those half days stay as they are.
Yep.
Okay. All right, now we're going to go into the budget workshop. We're going to start with operations and maintenance.
No one wants to stay for budget?
Come on now.
Sean, you can't escape. You're on the agenda.
Sure, yes, that would be perfect for Sean's piece. Yeah, just throw the slideshow up. There's not, Sean's gonna do it off his paper copy, but we'll run through it after he's done. Yes, yeah, put it up, yeah.
It's like.
Yeah.
Well, ended up with you. All right.
I can do the line.
Okay.
All
All right. As you all probably have this, the paper in front of you, I'm going to go from school to school on some of the main stuff that I'm asking for this upcoming year. So I'll start with Mount Vernon. I'm asking for some line painting. That is for the parking lots. That's 4,000. 4 new windows. They have 4 windows in the school that the seals are broke. 3,500. The fire panel upgrade has come due. That is a safety issue. So that really needs to be done. That's 11,000. They need a new water fountain up there and painting of the school. Comes to a total of 24,300. Wayne Elementary, we've got line painting in their parking lot. We've got a dumpster rental. They would like to clean the basement from years and years of stuff that's been down there. Their fire panel has come due. Some more siding and trim work I'd like to do down there. We've worked on that for the last couple of years. Last year, we didn't get to it because of a job that we did at Reedfield Elementary. So I'd like to get back on that and get it finished. And the painting of the school. And their total is 25,500. Manchester, I've got 2 classrooms I'd like to start replacing some carpets in. Line painting in their parking lot. We have some concrete work out back in the boiler room. They have some stairs that go down into the boiler room and the wall has collapsed. So we need to really get that fixed. And yes, and some painting. And theirs comes to 34,500. Reedfield Elementary, line painting on their parking lot. I really want to re-drill the well. Their well is very shallow. If a toilet runs, it will drain the well in a few hours. And we've had that issue many times. So I'd like to get that done. I'd like to replace a couple of carpets in their classrooms. They have a panel box that needs to be replaced. They have an electric panel box by the gym. We can no longer get breakers for it, so old. So if we have any upgrades or have to do anything, we can't do nothing with that panel box. Painting and an AC in the OT office. So the Reedfield total is 58,500. The middle school, I had the bleachers inspected. We've got to do some repairs on those. And that's a safety issue that needs to get done. It's just minor things. It's some boards need to be replaced, some brackets that have cracks. Line painting for the parking lot. The dumpster rental, which we do every year in the basement. The new doghouse stack up on the roof. What we have is the chimney from the propane boiler comes out of the roof and has a little doghouse around it so the snow don't knock it off. It needs to be replaced. And their fire panel needs to be updated. And painting of the school, which their total is 48,000. The high school, line painting on the parking lot.
as you probably guessed, this year I'd like to do all the painting and all the parking lots at the school. I've skipped them for a couple of years and done other things, so it's time. The painting, I've got one more rug to replace in the high school, and the high school is pretty well done. AC in the office and the siding repair, and that's getting really bad, so we got to start doing some siding repair there. And that total is 46,000. Central office, don't have much down there. They're just gonna do a little painting inside. The bus garage, the regular painting, and we've got some brick repair in the garage that has to get done this year. So then for my equipment this year, what I'm asking for is I'm asking for 2 18-inch vacuums, 2 14-inch vacuums, a high-speed burnisher for Reed Field, a zero-turn mower for Reed Field, a floor machine for Manchester, and some camera upgrades. We did the camera upgrades. It really wasn't an upgrade. We put new cameras for the outside, and I was talking with Norm, and we'd like to update the cameras on the inside of the schools. So my equipment total will come to 50,900. So some of the, as you see down the projects I moved out the wood chips. I moved out a shed roof, a new sign for Manchester, the wood chips for Reed Field, some toilets and faucets, some faucets at the high school, and the bus garage, some trim repair. The stuff I'm going to try to do in this year's budget somehow. I'm going to try. And I moved out a snow blower for Mount Vernon and a backpack blower and a weed whacker. I know you guys probably see my budget and you look at last year's where it was right around 100,000, but I took a really big hit last year, which some of you that are on the board know that. So I'm trying to get my budget back up to what I'm usually at. And believe me, there's a lot more that I would have liked to do. But these are some things that really have to get done. So before I ask about questions, I'll go on my staffing part. I have a 6-month mowing position right now. I'd like to change the 6-month mowing to a full-time position. So it'd be a 6-month mowing and 6-month custodian. And I'd like to ask for a full-time maintenance person, one more. My issue that I'm having is I can't get custodians. I haven't been fully staffed this year at all. I don't know if doing what I do now with my maintenance person I have now, which is Tony, whenever somebody calls out, Tony's a custodian. He's a custodian more than he is a maintenance person. And if I can't get custodians, if I had a full-time, another maintenance person, I could use him as a custodian. It's really not ideal, but as Jay knows and everybody knows, it's how to get custodian. We just can't get them. I don't know why. We've tried everything. I don't know if it's the pay. I don't know what it is, but the way this world is now, it's hard to find anybody that wants to do a lot anyway. So that's that. And then the one other thing on the Siemens stuff that we have them do every year, I have one of my custodians does all of our filter changes and all of our air handlers, our VRVs, everything. It's not getting done in a timely manner. And it's not the custodian's fault. It's just, we just don't have the time. So I could have Siemens do it, which would add to my budget. The year one was 34,000, year two, 35,000, it goes down. It is a lot of money. And that is another reason if I had a full-time, another maintenance person, they could do that too. But putting it onto my custodians, it's not working. I mean, they're doing the best. We are getting them changed, but we're not getting them changed in the time that they should be changed. So that's pretty much the big stuff that I'm asking for and the big changes in my budget. If there's any questions on any of it. Go ahead.
I have a few questions, comments.
Yep.
Basement cleanup, just put in a state sale sign up in the community. We'll come get it. We'll come clear these things out. Maybe. So the AC in the OT office, I am wondering what kind of AC unit this is for $6,000. So is this like a big, I don't know what the OT office.
That, you want to
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sean,
It's in Reedfield Elementary. It's in a room which was a closet. We made it into this classroom 2 years ago, was it 2 years? 2 years ago. And it's for Ryan Reserve program, I believe, correct? Yeah. And there's no windows, there's no nothing. And this AC is like the heat pump type AC. And the problem is with no outside wall, we have to, it's a special one, you have to pump everything quite, so it does cost a little bit of money. Yeah.
You could move the OT room to a room with a window.
We.
I don't know. Can
I don't want it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I, yeah.
it's hard to, when somebody has a room, they don't want to give up a room, I will say that.
Okay. And camera upgrades, 30K, do they not work?
No, they
well?
do, they do work.
They do work.
They do work. When they do go down, and some have started to go down, then we have to upgrade to the new style. Yeah,
How they get you the technology?
they do,
Crazy.
they do, yeah.
How many cameras
Forget
does
it.
that include?
Guard dog.
I don't know that right out, but it's both schools. It's the high school, middle school. It's quite a few cameras. Yeah,
What do we
it's
catch on these cameras?
a lot,
That's a whole nother discussion.
a lot.
All right.
So-
34.
Yeah.
So what you're catching on these cameras, maybe we could have them do community service and some
Clean out the
painting
basement.
Make them drive
and maybe they
buses.
could
Yeah.
do junior janitor duty. Is there community service still? Is there a rec like a somebody else?
Wasn't when I was there.
Yeah, we had to.
I will say I've had two high school students have stepped up and they actually work for me 4 hours a night. I'm using 2 high school students. And it's
That's
right
awesome.
now, yeah. It's
That's
working
what I'm
really good.
talking about. That's
Yeah.
great.
It is great. It's really good. We just make sure the grades are up and they keep working. It's, yeah.
It's marriage material, right?
I mean, I don't know where the rest of the board is, but
They bought- they bought-
Tyler?
I don't know where the rest of the board is, but I'd be open to doing more positions like that, opening up work experience for whether it be mowing or whatever you need that they can do. If we can set aside funds for it, pay them minimum wage and get them work experience, I'm all for it. I think that's a great use of district money if it's gonna give kids work experience.
Yeah, we do what we can legally. One of the
Legal.
things about mowing is that there is an age limit now, so.
Let me get
As
to
much as
18.
I'd like to
Yeah.
hire 16-year-old, the law won't allow us to do that, so. Yeah, we get hamstrung, like those old days are gone where we could do those things, so. But whatever we can, we're
Right,
trying
yeah,
to do. And I
mean-
think this is working really well, so we want to expand upon it if we can, for sure.
Can I ask, so on here you have carpets for $15,000 for 2 classrooms.
Yep.
Like, why is it that expensive?
Oh, I'm telling you, the price of everything now it's, I looked back at 3 years ago in one of my budgets and I looked at some of the prices compared to now and it was tripled. I'm fathomed at the price is right now. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with Lee the other day, the siding on the high school, the plywood is going through the roof, and I'm like, I need to get some now, just because if I wait till later, it's just gonna be even more. I can't get over the pricing.
How big are these classrooms?
They're good sized classrooms and of course it's carpets and the carpet squares have gone through the roof. It's just, and I'm afraid, to be honest with you, that when it comes time, if whatever does pass, I'm afraid these prices are going to be more than what it is because they only hold the price for 30 days, which I understand that, but I still have to have a number for my budget. So the prices are just astronomical.
To piggyback on what Sean said, just to give you a little kind of background, we were told on our property liability casualty insurance to expect a 19 to 23% increase. And when I asked why, it was because of building materials. They flat out said it's because of the cost to rebuild things. Yep. So it's one of those things that's out of our control, unfortunately, and it's tough.
A lot of the siding wood.
Yeah.
Yes.
The high school siding is wood. It's been there since 76, I think the school was built. And they brought it right to the ground and the water, it's very.
Vinyl.
And what I'm gonna do is we have to pull the board and batten off, replace the plywood, and then 4 feet up, I'm going vinyl. So that when it comes down, but I can't do the whole, we'll just do it in sections. Yeah. I did get a quote. I don't have it's in my office, but I did have a quote to have somebody replace all of it for me just to get an idea, 480,000. I was like, no, we'll do it in sections. We'll do it ourselves. Yeah.
Sean?
I mean, a lot of these projects look like they kind of have to be done. I mean, so I think we need to keep that in mind. I mean, you can't have a well. I mean, there's been water issues at Reedfield Elementary for one reason or another for a while.
Since I've been here.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in elementary school in 2005 and can remember having water issues. at
It's
Reedfield Elementary.
been that way since I've been here.
Yeah,
and-
and there was many different reasons why people said so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, and then lastly, just want to say, I know you work really hard to save the district money, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I know these budgets, when you present them, are.
I don't ask for it if we don't need it.
No, I know, and you
Yeah.
work. I've seen some of the things you've done on time off and stuff,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Diane, I'll do it right from my seat here. If you can pull up, I believe it's slide number 6 for us. So as we're pulling that up, we are going to have a first draft budget for you guys tonight, kind of big picture, so that you can start to process and figure out kind of next steps. One of the things I want to point out, and I know a few of you I've talked to individually about this, but Sean's budget is going to show a more significant increase than just what he showed here, because his budget is where all of the energy costs are budgeted. And again, I'm going to use Wayne as an example. We got their electricity bill, same number of kilowatt hours, and it literally doubled. And that was just Wayne. So we haven't seen yet the other schools. So we're expecting huge increases in power, not just in electricity, but also in our propane and diesel as well. And all of that sits in his budget. So just so that you guys, when you see it, you go, wait a minute, that's not what he showed us. It's because we're trying to account for budget factors there. Just wanted to give you an update on the COVID, our bond money and our COVID money, just so that you kind of keep that in mind. Remember, we had a facilities bond. My first year here was for $15 million. It has to be spent by the end of August 2022. We currently have a little over $86,000 in that account at this time, and we need to finish that up. So there may be an opportunity for a few other little projects, and there may be 1 or 2 in Sean's budget that we potentially could move into the bond. But we did a number of extra projects in that bond that we never would have been able to do had we not had Sean, because he saved us a ton of money and allowed us to do extra things. So I thank Sean for saying that about Sean Drinkwater, because it was him that took on those projects that saved us the money to allow us to do other things with that money. So it was fantastic. So just so that you guys know that the ESSER 1 was a little over $159,000, and we had put in a nurse, a 2-year nurse position, and that was split between Mount Vernon and Wayne. That's coming to an end this year. So obviously that money will be completely spent out. CRF 1 and CRF 2 have already been completely spent out. And again, most of those things went into the materials that we needed for the pandemic. Everything from PPE right down to more desks and, that kind of stuff. So that money has been totally spent out. ESSER 2, we had $666,000 there. We'll have about a little over $54,000 left that isn't encumbered. And again, that needs to be spent by the end of 2023. So by August 2023, that money's got to be spent. I know we will be talking more about positions going forward, probably into next week. But one of the positions that I think is going to be really important to keep at least 1 more year is the nursing position. And I'm thinking that if it's something you guys support, I would try to use that $54,000 as a way to offset so that we can have a nurse split between Wayne and Mount Vernon at least one more year. So I'm just kind of throwing it out now. We can finalize that later. And then obviously ESSER 3 was a significant amount, almost 1.5 million. And $378,000 of that money is set aside for learning loss. So summer school, enrichment projects and tutoring and that kind of thing. So that money is still sitting there. We have a little over $500,000 there. That includes that learning loss. So most of that ESSER 3 is encumbered going forward. So like our Wayne principal position is being paid through 2024, the 23-24 year. So that's already been factored out at that point. But again, we've got until September 2024 to spend that. So if we need to make adjustments, we still have time to do that going forward. But I wanted you guys to kind of see what is the amounts in those particular grants going forward and where we are, at least at this point, especially as we'll have to talk a lot about positions. So, Patty?
Jay, where is the
counselor
Where is
is
that
in ESSER 3.
Okay.
So that's one that we picked up about halfway through the year, but the elementary counselor, we do have an out, she's doing a great job. And we do have that, but it was for this 1 year only. So again, that's one of those positions we're going to have to talk about going forward. But it was in ESSER 3. Thank you for asking that.
Has there been any thought of taking, and I know we want projects that last 20 years, and I have to guess, I don't know, and Sean or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the fire panels probably last 20 years. The well, I hope the well lasts more than 20 years because my house is coming up on 20 years. And that equals $76,000, so that could relieve
exactly
that
That's what we're
money.
hoping
And I think
to-
those are all 20-year plus projects. So
No,
maybe
that's
that's something
exactly
to look
what
at
we wanna
with
do.
facilities,
Yeah.
so we can get that approved and
Yeah.
kind of out of the budget.
Sounds good. Other questions? All right, so can we pass out the first draft budget? And like I said, this is the broad overview. So there might be a little bit of a sticker shock here. But knowing, having said that, I will also be coming back with some recommendations at our next meeting of things that we will probably remove from the request. So I've started that discussion with the principals that are here. And we'll also continue that discussion going forward, not just with the principals, but with the other cost centers as well. So, but just so that you guys know, we'll wait till you get it before we shout anything out. You've already got one right there.
I'm just kind of nervous.
She's like, she does- she's scared.
I'm so afraid blood pressure is gonna go like here.
So I know everyone, for those of you that are new looking at the budget, obviously it's broke out by the buildings and what's district-wide, facilities, and then facilities with transportation, and then our elementary schools going across there. So, so when you look at the grand total, this first round, I didn't filter anything this time. I gave you guys all of the requests because I wanted you guys to see what all of the requests look like. In the past, I pulled some requests back right from the get-go, but this year I said, we've got a lot of new people. I want them to see everything before we start pulling things back. So an initial would be up almost $2 million, which is a little over 10.5% there, which is a significant number.
Do we probably don't have this, but do we have the breakdown of what that bill is per town?
Say that again.
I mean, I know we probably don't have the formula, but you know, like last year we had the breakdown of where that split per town. Do you have that split yet?
Yes, we'll have that for you next time.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So this was, we just wanted to give you guys a broad overview, so at least you had something as a starting point before you get into the heavy discussion piece. So,
Jay, can I ask a question?
of course,
The elementary line that's second to the grand, above the grand total.
Yep.
What is that and how is it different than the elementary schools above?
So that would be district-wide, things that are budgeted specifically district-wide that aren't specific to just the school.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Other questions? So when you're looking and thinking about budget, we have our last round of presentations next week on the 9th. So we'll do that last round, and I will share with you guys more information about the ED 279 as well with you at that point, so you can kind of get a framework when somebody's asking you, how do we get allotted our share from the Department of Education? And then what does the local share, which is our towns, have to pick up? So I'll give you guys a little tutorial on that. I'll keep it short and sweet. And then I'll also have recommendations of things we're going to pull back from the budget. We'll give you a second round with those things pulled out so that we can have more of a reasonable discussion. There are a couple of things though that I want you guys to keep in mind that are kind of beyond our control. One of them is the energy costs. I'm really, really worried about energy costs for the district, so I just want to be upfront about that. The second thing that I want you guys to kind of keep in the back of your mind is all the health insurance, the property and casualty. Again, we're going to be told what the increase is. So we've right now factored in what they kind of said. It might be as much as this. So typically we've done 10% on health insurance. Then when we get our number, we pull it back based on whatever that number is, whatever the percentage increase is. Again, that's not anything we control going forward from there. And then, as you guys know, salaries is basically 80% of the school budget, and we are in a negotiating season. So keep that in mind, because those are kind of fixed things. I know we're working on a new contract, but again, at the same time, those are kind of fixed for us going forward. So those three things we don't have a lot of control over, so to speak. So the 20% is really what we do control, and that's really not that much after all. So just file that away.
So are there any citizen comments regarding the budget? Did anyone sign up? Is there anyone online, Diane? Any questions or comments? One? None. The person left? Oh, okay. Nobody online? Okay. The person left? Okay, there it is. No. Is there any other discussion about the budget by the board? Any other questions or discussion?
Till next time.
Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? We're not going to do the roll.
Yeah, we're not going to do the roll call
Consensus.
for that. Well, we actually did it.
Well, it's not